Hello, everyone. Welcome to Liberation Saturday. My name is Olubunmi Fishusi, and I'm one of the members of Operation Power, people organizing and working for empowerment and respect. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Education Committee of Operation Power, and I'm proud to welcome you to this Saturday's Liberation Saturday program titled Meet the Radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As many of you may know, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday was January 15th, and this year we celebrated Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Monday the 19th, I believe. So we wanted to do a special program dedicated towards this special man, but to also talk about his life in a different way than many of you may have seen on the day that we celebrated earlier this month, and discuss his teachings and his philosophies from a more radical standpoint. I'm going to read a quick excerpt of the book Speaking Truth to Power by Charles Barron, who is one of the co-founders of Operation Power. He has a section, an article in his book. It's a collection of essays titled Frozen in History, Thawing Out the Radical Dimensions of Rosa Parks and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s most memorable moment in history is his famous I Have a Dream speech, which he delivered during the historic march in Washington in 1963. Both Parks and King have been defined by the media and historians who have frozen them in history by focusing on these two undeniable catalytic events. For Rosa Parks, it was refusing to give up her seat. There's no question that both of these acts had a tremendous impact on the civil rights movement and were indeed historic. But when one examines that frozen history and explores Rosa Parks' life after 1955 and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life after 1963, one will discover a deep, radical dimension to both of their lives. And so I just wanted us to take a minute and imagine for a second, someone froze you in time based on a conversation that they had with you or a speech that they gave. There's so much more to people than one speech, one conversation, one moment. And so today we really want to take time to explore other dimensions and other elements of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And talk about some of his more radical beliefs. Before we jump into the program, I did want to cue up a video that discusses a little bit more about Black radical politics, which is a wide held belief by members of Operation Power. And in the video, it features one of the co-founders of Operation Power, Charles Barron, who's a former New York City Council member, a former New York State Assembly member. And it kind of delves a little bit deeper into what we believe and what we mean when we say Black radical politics. So please take a minute, and we hope you enjoy this video.
Radical means getting to the root of the problem. And oftentimes we organize around symptomology, the symptoms of the root causes. So instead of looking at the structure of capitalism and how it brings or yields unemployment, poverty, how it yields through racist institutions, racial profiling, foreclosures, inadequate health care, miseducation, all of these issues that are vital to our communities, if you're not into radical politics, then you're looking for anti-violence programs, you're looking for workforce development programs, and we should. But if this machine over here is producing all of that, and you never look at the very fundamental structure of the system, you're going to have a problem. I'll give you another example. They said that the economic crises was caused by deregulation, that they didn't have regulations for Wall Street. Well, that's correct to an extent. But even when Wall Street was regulated, black people were still catching it. We still were unemployed to the tune of 40 and 50% our youth, and 10, 15, 20% in our communities. We still were on the bottom. We still had poverty. We still had far too much homelessness and unemployment, even when there's no economic crises, because it's not really deregulation, it's the very system of capitalism itself that's creating the problem. When you have the massive amount of wealth at the top, the 1%, and the 99% not sharing in that wealth and income, then you're going to have major, major problems. Something's fundamentally wrong with that system. When you pay more taxes than some of the corporations, something's fundamentally wrong with that system. So when we say radical politics, we want to get to the root causes of our oppression. We want to get our people involved with politics that's going to be unafraid to speak truth to power, unafraid to say that I'm running an electoral arena. We're going to talk black. We're going to talk radical and still get elected and still deliver. And that's what we have been able to do. We should not be afraid of it. We have to redefine it for our people and raise their consciousness.
Are you a radical politician?
Absolutely. And I am proud to say I'm radical. I'm proud to say that we're getting to the root of the problem. I ran here in East New York, and people said, don't tell people you're a Black Panther. De-emphasize that. Go put on a shirt and tie. Go along to get along. Then after you get in, you can say this and that. No, I was honest. And you know what? When I got in, we were able to renovate 3 parks, $17.5 million more than any other council member. I am the #1 council member in building affordable housing, at least in Brooklyn, 6,000 units. Was able to bring in 2 new $80 million schools. Was able to have a black male initiative in CUNY, the City University of New York, $2.5 million over the last 7 years. And I could sit here for the rest of this taping and talk about the accomplishments. And I did this being strong, being black, calling racism what it is, taking on the mayor, the speaker, the governor. And I did this bringing Robert Mugabe to City Hall, the president of Zimbabwe. I did this going to Cuba, going to Venezuela to learn more about governments and how socialism works. I did all of this going to even Gaza, to the Gaza Strip in the Middle East, and bringing humanitarian aid for the Palestinian people, because we cannot afraid to be who we are, to be radicals, to be progressive, and the people will respond when you respond to their needs. When I was able to get people jobs and able to stop landlords for throwing people out, able to find shelter for people. When you meet the needs of the people, then the people will respect your politics.
And with that, we want to welcome you to Liberation Saturday. Before we do anything else in our program, we do want to transition to the part of our program where we do a libation. During our libation program, we honor those who came before us. We honor those who are our elders, and we also honor those who are no longer with us and are now ancestors. And so with that, during our libation video, you are going to hear a call to say the names of ancestors and to thank those who came before us. Feel free to chime along and say Ashe every time you hear a call to our ancestors and those who came before us.
For African people, nothing important happens without a libation. And so for this very important presentation, we begin by the pouring of libation. We pour libation first to our first ancestor, to that hidden one who, though hidden, manifests in all things as all things, that God-Goddess idea in the universe by any and all names. To our first ancestor, we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the first people on this planet, mothers and fathers of all mankind, flashpoint of the human family. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the ones who first gave birth to the idea of civilization, knew we would need a form of governance, and they nurtured that idea along the Nile until it reached its zenith in Kemet. There they built these gigantic monuments as evidence of that great civilization, and they carved instructions on the walls of temples and tombs for us, so we would never forget. To those ancestors we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because over time they put together all the tenets of civilization and they took those ideas and left the continent. They were the people of the first Exodus. They left Africa and went all over the world and peopled the world. To those ancestors we pour libation, Ashe. We pour a libation too to our ancestors because they did not sit on their laurels. They continued to improve, continued to evolve, and at each point of evolution, they again would leave the continent and settle and resettle the planet. They met themselves coming and going. To those ancestors, we pour a libation. Ashe. Pour a libation too to those ancestors because over time, they found themselves the object of a forced exodus when they were kidnapped, shackled, cargoed, shipped out of Africa and enslaved in diasporas around the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to the ancestors left at home, the very young, the aged, the infirm, left to reinvent themselves, depleted of us, human resources. But they were enjoined by us in the diasporas, both objects of a global myopia that ruptured the soul of a people as it ravaged a continent. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time they began to remember who and what they were. Because no matter where they had been dropped off, they still retained bits and pieces of who and what they were. They retained that African core that described them. They began to remember bits and pieces of a song. They began to remember lines from a rhythm. They began to remember dances that they did in ancient times. They began to remember those ancient drum beats that they now beat out on bare skin. And so to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to them because they then began to teach each other. They began to resurrect and reconstruct that history and that culture. They became the new Africans wherever they were. They became the new teachers, preachers, archaeologists, the new singers, dancers, the new drummers, the new Jaliyah. They reconstructed that history and our culture and became new Africans everywhere. So to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation to those ancestors because they are the ones who pass that information on to us. And so we pour libation to those of you who will watch this presentation, those of you who are the recipients of that pieced together history, of that reconstructed culture. To you, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to our children and those yet to be born, for they are the ones that you must teach. And you can only teach if you know the history. So to you who are learning the history and are passing on that history, and to our children who are learning that history and will pass that history on to all eternity, but they will call your name in all eternity. To our children we pour libation. Ashe. Ashe. Asheo.
Asheo. And so on this day, when we are doing a Liberation Saturday program titled Meet the Radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we just wanted to share an additional Ashe for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself. Ashe. We also wanted to share a special Ashe for his parents, Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta Williams King, and then also an Ashe for his wife, the wife of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Coretta Scott King. So Ashe. Earlier in the program, when I introduced myself, I mentioned that I am one of the educational co-chairs of an organization called Operation Power. You may be wondering, what is Operation Power if you're new to our channel and you're new to our Liberation Saturday program? As I mentioned earlier, Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect. And we do have a brief video, just so you can get a better understanding of what Operation Power is, how it started, what we stand for, and some of the things that we've been able to accomplish during our tenure as an organization.
Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect.
Operation Power is a grassroots social justice organization founded by local community stakeholders, which includes activists, organizers, and leaders who understand that the system as it is currently structured is destroying us and our communities.
The system, the capitalist system, one that promotes human greed over human need, one that promotes profit over people, needs to be dismantled. These local community organizers recognize capitalism needs to be destroyed and replaced with socialism.
Operation P.O.W.E.R was founded in 1997 with the understanding that uprooting capitalism needs to begin locally. Operation Power understood that our communities are the perfect vehicle to dismantle this parasitic capitalist system brick by brick, and the economic, political, and cultural institutions and other systems in place in our local community infrastructure. Whether it's the local school board, community board, city council, state assembly, all represents mechanisms to control the destiny of our people.
In 1997, Operation Power launched the campaign Charles Barron for City Council that would lead to over 20 years of radical changes in the East New York community. These changes included over 20,000 units of housing affordable to our community, three $88 million schools, over $110 million secured and allocated for community parks, millions secured for library upgrades, and another $42 million for the construction of a new library.
Cultural programs such as the Juneteenth celebration, Kwanzaa programs, and reinterment of Sankofa Park, securing thousands of jobs for local residents.
We've secured political seats that include city council seat, state assembly seat, state committee person, male and female district leader, chair of the local community board members, campaigning and getting a judge from the community elected, county committee seats, block association presidents, tenant presidents, and much more.
And all this was done while being Black radicals. We are Black radicals, which means getting to the root causes of the problems challenging our community. We need to get to the root and not lose ourselves battling the symptoms of this vicious capitalist system, because we know that revolution is the solution.
Operation Power believes in Black power for Black people. Black power is still needed and still relevant. Operation Power believes that Black radicalism is the only position we can afford to take. Getting to the root of our problem for revolutionary change. Operation Power believes in community control for Black people as the only way to get to self-determination and liberation.
Operation Power believes that we need to move to a more socialist system, a communal system that doesn't suffocate but liberates. With these beliefs, we take collective action for our self-determination and liberation by being a part of Operation Power.
So once again, welcome to our program. Welcome to Liberation Saturday. So as I mentioned earlier, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has often been frozen in time as a result of his I Have a Dream speech. And so we wanted to take today's Liberation Saturday program to really dedicate some time to discuss Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's more radical beliefs and to go beyond that I Have a Dream speech. Some of the things that were more radical about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was his affiliation, or the fact that he was a Democratic Socialist who believed in the radical redistribution of wealth. The radical King was also against quote unquote Black faces in high places, Black leaders who are oftentimes picked and appointed by white progressives, but when they get in office, they actually don't have an impact on the Black and brown communities they serve, and they do nothing in terms of their communities and their constituents' tangible needs, especially the most vulnerable members of their constituencies and their communities. The radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also helped launch the Poor People's Campaign, which was really just trying to get to the rights that people have in terms of working rights, but their ability to afford a living wage, to earn a living wage, and to be able to have a respectable income that they can then use to provide for their families and their loved ones and for themselves. And so today we're going to be taking a look at an episode of a show, interestingly enough, called Operation Power, co-hosted by Charles and Inez Barron, who are co-founders of Operation Power, the organization. They do a show every Thursday on YouTube on the Black Media Reloaded YouTube page. Their show is called Operation Power, and so last week they did an episode dedicated towards the radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so we thought it would be fitting to watch that episode together, watch some clips of that episode together, and then to try to have a discussion as a community about some of the interesting and important things that they highlight in that episode. So we're going to take a look at some clips here and there. There will be discussion questions in which you can engage in the chat, in the comment section, and then we're just going to discuss together that truly important episode of the Operation Power show, co-hosted by Charles and Inez Barron on Black Power Media Reloaded. Before we get into the first clip from their show, we did want to play a cultural piece that is one of the staples of our Liberation Saturday programs here in Operation Power, the organization. And so the first cultural piece is Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday. We thought it would be fitting because not only was it Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a few days ago, but also that song was a part of the campaign to help make his birthday a federal holiday. And so it's a classic, and we hope you enjoy, and feel free to sing along as you listen. And so happy belated birthday once again to the late radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We are now going to jump into some of the clips from the Operation Power show, co-hosted by Charles and Inez Barron. The first video clip we're going to take a look at is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. discussing Rip Van Winkle, which is a folk tale about a gentleman named Washington Irving who winds up sleeping so long that he sleeps through a revolution. So go ahead, take a look. While we queue up the video, I'll also share that the reason why he slept through a revolution is when he went to sleep, America was still being colonized by the British, and by the time he woke up, the American Revolution had already transpired. And so Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King has some interesting sentiments about this folktale, as well as some of the things that we can learn about sleeping through a revolution. So we hope you enjoyed the video. And then directly after the video, we are going to hear the commentary that Charles and Inez Barron shared about the video. And then we're actually going to pitch or pose a question to you while you watch the response video that Charles and Inez Barron had to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. discussing Rip Van Winkle.
From which to preach this morning, remaining awake through a great revolution. And the text for the morning is found in the book of Revelation. There are two passages there that I would like to quote. It's in the 16th chapter of that book. Behold, I make all things new. Former things are passed away. I'm sure that most of you have read that arresting little story from the pen of Washington Irving entitled Rip Van Winkle. And the one thing that we usually remember about the story is that Rip Van Winkle slept 20 years. But that is another point in that little story that is almost always completely overlooked. It was a sign in the end from which Rip went up in the mountain for his long sleep. When Rip Van Winkle went up in the mountain, the sign had a picture of King George III of England. When he came down 20 years later, the sign had a picture of George Washington, the first president of the United States. And Rip Van Winkle looked up at the picture of George Washington, but in looking at the picture, he was amazed. He was completely lost. He knew not who he was. And this reveals to us that the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle is not merely that Rip slept 20 years, but that he slept through a revolution. While he was peacefully snoring up in the mountain, a revolution was taking place that at points would change the course of history. And Rip knew nothing about it. He was asleep. Yes, he slept through a revolution. One of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change, and yet they fail to develop the new attitudes the new mental responses that the new situation demands. And they end up sleeping through.
Thank you, Cairo. And so we are about to jump into Mr. and Mrs. Barron's response to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s discussion about Rip Van Winkle and Sleeping Through a Revolution. But we wanted to encourage you to think about these two discussion questions as you watch their response. And feel free to chime in the comment section if you have a response to one or both of these questions. The first question is, what type of revolution of values and ideas do you think we need today? Once again, the first question is, what type of revolution of values and ideas do you think we need today? And the second discussion question is, in addition to Charles and Inez Barron, who are some other Black radical activists and leaders who are not sleeping through the revolution? We'd love to hear your thoughts as you check out this response video featuring Charles and Inez Barron about Rip Van Winkle.
See, this was Dr. King talking about revolution. I had written an article about Dr. King, and this is one of the quotes I want to read from the book that I had. And all that. He said, in 1952, in Dr. Cornel West's book, he was dating Coretta Scott, and he said to her, I imagine you already know that I am much more socialistic than capitalistic. And I hope you can understand that. She said to Cornel West, on my first date with Martin, I was surprised because I never met a Black socialist before. He started off with socialism. And so Dr. King was talking some powerful stuff. He said this too. This is very interesting. We're going to go to the next tape, and Inez, if you want to make any commentary, feel free. But he said this also. He said, for years, I have labored with the idea of reforming the existing institutions of the South. A little change here, a little change there. Now I feel quite differently. I think you've got to have a radical reconstruction of the entire society, a revolution of values and ideas. This is Dr. King.
Dr. King also talked about the fact that this was systemic. It wasn't superficial, it was structural.
Right, right.
And he said that we have got to get below that, and we've got to change those systems that are so deeply rooted in the American system. So, want to move now?
Okay. At this point in the program, we are going to see another cultural piece. We are about to watch a video clip of the song "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised" by Gil Scott-Heron.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nubs. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner, because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run, or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on report from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still lights of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so damn relevant, and women will not care if Dick finally got down with Jane on Search for Tomorrow, because black people will be in the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no highlights on the 11 o'clock news and no pictures of Harry armed women liberationists and Jackie Onassis blowing her nose. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Key, nor sung by Glenn Campbell, Tom Jones, Johnny Cash, Engelbert Humperdinck, or The Rare Earth. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with Coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
Thank you, Cairo. So our next part of the program, we are going to watch another video clip of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. discussing the slogan, Black Power. Following that, we will once again watch commentary. And then before the commentary by Charles and Inez Barron, I wanted to share another discussion question for us to keep in mind as we watch their response video. But once again, prior to that, here is a video clip of the radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. discussing the slogan, Black Power.
And I contend that the cry of black power is at bottom a reaction to the reluctance of white power to make the kind of changes necessary to make justice a reality for the Negro. I think we've got to see that a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the economic plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years.
So as we jump into Mr. and Mrs. Barron's response to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s sentiments on the slogan, Black Power, we are going to think about, I'd encourage you to think about the following question. What types of political and economic power do you think are needed today in order to gain the just and legitimate goals that the radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about? The question will also be posted in the comment section, so feel free to read it there and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you think as you watch Mr. and Mrs. Barron share their thoughts about the same video clip.
This is a most interesting quote. King on Black Power. You should hear what he said. First of all, there was a very interesting debate between Dr. King, Floyd McKissick, and Stokely Carmichael. You remember when they continued the march of, what's his name, who was shot? Who was shot? James Meredith. When James Meredith was shot by shotgun, he went on this solo march against hate, and he was shot by a white man, and they decided to continue the march. That's when they got into that slogan battle, when they said, Black Power, and King's people were saying, freedom now. But Sellers and Kwame Nkrumah, well, Kwame Ture now, but Stokely Carmichael, that's when Black Power reverberated across the world. because it was the right time to say it. So they had a meeting in the church to, because every night they was in the slogan war. And King said, wait a minute, let's get together. So he said, Stokely, I don't have no problems with Black Power, but it has denotative and connotative meaning. We have the white racists on the hook. So when you start saying Black Power, you're going to take them off the hook. And now we have to explain Black Power. And Stokely Carmichael said, that's right. We should explain Black Power. We got to take it to another level. Stokely said the Irish have Irish power. The Italians have Italian power. And so why can't we have Black Power? King came back and said, yes, they got this power, but they didn't have to have a slogan with it. And Stokely said, but you got to have slogans to push for your meaning and the definition of your struggle. So they went back and forth and they agreed that, Black Power was going to be said and reverberated through the whole thing. And King said, and I have a quote from him on Black Power, very interesting because he really wasn't against Black Power. He said, Black Power. Now, there is a kind of concrete, real Black Power that I believe in. Certainly, if Black Power means the amassing of political and economic power in order to gain our just and legitimate goals, then we all have to believe in that. So he was for Black Power, but technically it wasn't. And Stokely was right to say it at that time because it had to be pushed on another level. And then the other thing he said, when in 67 there were riots, or not riots, we call them uprisings. King called them riots. When the uprisings occurred because of police brutality all over the country, they asked King to condemn those who were engaged in violent uprisings. And he said, his words, quote, riots are the voice of the unheard. You're not listening to this, America. So I cannot condemn the riots without condemning the conditions that caused them to riot in the first place. Not like these leaders today, y'all got to be cool, no more violence, King was a believer in nonviolence to the end of his life. But he said he understood what his people were doing because the system was not responding.
And he talked also about the Black radical movement, the Black civil rights movement, and said that it was a reflection of what was going on and what was being manifested in so many other parts. There were uprisings and revolutions all across the country and indeed across the nation, talking about the revolution, talking about the Vietnam War and all of that. Mm-hmm. So he understood that it was a manifestation of, in fact, the capitalist system being able to talk to people and being able to relate to people because people all across the world were suffering in similar kinds of conditions, suffering from the capitalism that had forced them to be subjugated and forced them to live in conditions that were below what in fact were honorable conditions for people of all kinds of nations.
So in fact, all of you Black preachers, Black politicians that love Dr. King, by the way, happy birthday, Dr. King. Today is his birthday, who love him so much. Just remember, you can't love King and love imperialist wars. You can't love King and say he's one of your mentors and you love capitalism. You can't love King and be anti-socialism because King was anti-imperialism, anti-capitalism, and pro-socialism.
Wow. If I have not already, I would highly encourage you to watch the entire episode that we have been playing clips from today. The show is titled Operation Power. It is on Black Media Reloaded on Thursdays from 7 p.m. Eastern Time to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is co-hosted by Charles and Inez Barron. And I just learned so much even from watching that episode. And so members of Operation Power were so appreciative of that episode that is why we found it fitting to play clips from it today for our Liberation Saturday program on the Radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The next clip of the Radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that we're going to watch is a short piece of a speech that he gave in 1967 at the New Politics Convention. So we're going to take a look at that speech now.
The time has come for America to face the inevitable choice between materialism and humanism. We must devote at least as much to our children's education and the health of the poor as we do to the care of our automobiles and the building of beautiful, impressive hotels. We must also realize that the problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power. We must further recognize that the ghetto is a domestic colony. Black people must develop programs that will aid in the transfer of power and wealth into the hands of residents of the ghetto so that they may in reality control their own destinies. This is the meaning of new politics.
Thank you, Cairo. Before we watch Mr. and Mrs. Barron's response to that video, which was a snippet of a speech that the Radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave in 1967 at the New Politics Convention, we wanted to offer up another discussion question or question to keep in mind as you watch their response. And so that discussion or reflection question is, which current issues and injustices do you think faith-based leaders should be engaging their congregations about and confronting by putting their feet on prayers? In the response, you are going to see or hear Mrs. Barron use this beautiful term called putting feet on prayers. And so that is what that means. And you'll learn a little bit more and hear a little bit about that in their response video. So here it is.
Now, did you hear that? That's Dr. King saying that the ghetto, which is what they call our communities back then, number one, was a domestic colony. We often talk about colonial capitalism on this show. We often talk about the colonial mode of production, the exploitation of African labor, of Caribbean labor, of Africans in America, our labor, for the sake of profit. King said we are a domestic colony. Man, this is 21st century talk, and he was talking in the 20th century. He said we're a domestic colony, meaning that even though we are the majority in our community, and even though we might even have the political seats in our community, a form of neo-colonialism, the new way to colonize us is put black faces in high places. Dr. King said we are a domestic colony. We don't control the means of production. We don't control the school system. We don't control the healthcare delivery system. We certainly don't control the police. We are a domestic colony of a colonial capitalist system. Now, if you just listen to this system, they would say that Dr. King, who was a civil rights activist of 1963, I have a dream. Let me depart for a minute. That I Have a Dream speech that he made in 1963, August of 1963, do you know he made that speech first in Detroit, June, a few months before August? The first time Dr. King made that speech was on the Great Walk for Freedom in Detroit, where over 200,000 civil rights demonstrators came out, and 80% of them were Black. The largest, at that point, civil rights demonstration ever in the history of the country, and 80% of them were Black. Jaramogi Abebe Ajamin, known back then as Reverend Clegg from the Shrine of the Black Madonna, Rosa Parks, they all organized that with him. That's when he first made the I Have a Dream speech. Then 2 months later, in August, he makes it and it shoots all over the world. Well, when he was talking to us, it wasn't important for the world to know that. But soon the march became more multiracial than Black, like it was in Detroit. That speech shot all over the world and is known to this day, but was first said, presented at the Great Walk for Freedom in Detroit.
Dr. King said that we've got to make sure that these issues, which are the real issues, are the ones that we've got to face. They're the ones that we've got to resolve. And he said, you've got to go out into a sometimes hostile world and make them face those issues, make them face the issues of poverty, militarism, and racism, talking about those kind of manifestations of capitalism and imperialism that are so entwined in all of the systems all across the nation and across the world. And as we talk about pastors today, preachers today, who are going to be in the pulpits on Sunday talking about the great Dr. Martin Luther King, remember, Dr. King confronted these systems. He didn't just go in a church and talk to those in the pulpit. He went outside. He went into the streets. He led the masses talking about confronting these kinds of conditions. And in fact, it was the sanitation workers in Memphis that were only making $1 a day, who didn't have uniforms, who didn't have the kinds of same amenities that the white workers had. And in fact, there was an incident where 2 of those workers were crushed to death in a truck. But it was Dr. King who put feet on those prayers, who put words and actions into what he believed and organized and went into the streets and confronted those injustices. He didn't sit silently. He didn't just pray in a church. He put feet and action onto those beliefs. And all of those pastors that are going to talk about Dr. King, we hope that you see the fullness of Dr. King and understand what he did to confront that system. He wasn't silent. He called them out and he challenged them. And we certainly have more than enough.
Come on now.
More than enough going on now for pastors to be engaging their engaging their congregations and making them emboldened to go out and address the issues.
Someone just put up there, he also organized the Poor People's Campaign to combat poverty. I was just ready to bring it up. Whoever you are, you must have been reading my mind. Because you know what? If those reverends that go to Washington annually for photo ops and for speeches claim that Dr. King is their leader, their mentor, I challenge you. Go to Washington like Dr. King was planning to do in 1968 before he was assassinated. He had organized a Poor People's Campaign. We got to go beyond race. He was getting into economic justice and revolution and radical systemic change. And he said, you know what? This time when we go to Washington, we're going to engage in militant civil disobedience. We're going to stop planes from taking off. We're going to go into the government agencies and buildings and stop the government from functioning. We're going to set up Resurrection City and stay there and not leave until they pass a $60 billion anti-poverty program that the newly elected Congressman John Conyers had submitted to Washington. So that's where he was headed, and he got diverted to the sanitation workers on April 3rd, and then April 4th, he was assassinated. But he was headed toward organizing that. Resurrection City happened. They set it up. They stayed. They demonstrated. The rains came. The police came. So it wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be. But the Reverend Barber and Reverend Sharpton go to Washington and stay there until you bring back something from Washington, not for photo ops, opportunistic photo ops, and a bunch of speeches. Make sure that you do militant civil disobedience and not photo opportunistic marches.
And I did have an opportunity to actually go to Resurrection City. And as Charles had said, it was rained out. There were tremendous rains, torrential rains that came. And even though the preparations that they had made had provided for some pallets to be made to support the tents that were there, it was rained out. And someone had a chat that they just put up. That's right. King understood that racial equality was not enough. There had to be a radical redistribution of wealth. And that's from the Afro-Socialist.
And I really think that's the reason why they assassinated him. It wasn't his outspokenness against the war in Vietnam. It was his outspokenness against colonial capitalism domestically. Once he went against the rich and capitalism, that was it. As a matter of fact, some of his workers around him said, "Hey, Martin, why are you messing with Johnson? Leave the war alone. Leave President Johnson alone. Don't you know we're getting funding from the government? And if you keep doing that, they're going to cut off our funding." See, that was back then when Malcolm called them the Big Six. Remember, he criticized the March on Washington, said it was the Big Six. They went there, and Kennedy or whoever president was then decided to just take the fangs out of the march, and they didn't even want no militant speeches made. Well, Dr. King evolved from that. He got to the point where he said, "I'm not going back there to make speeches." That in fact, he went there to bring back. Remember, he said, "We have a blank check that we need that check to have some.
Check.
We have a bad check,
insufficient funds.
Insufficient funds marked."
Thank you so much, Cairo. Cairo, before we jump into our next video clip, I did want to highlight some of the comments that I'm seeing. Wendell, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, mentioned continuing to fight for our reparations. That might have been in response to the question, what current issues and injustices do you think faith-based leaders should be engaging their congregations about and confronting by putting feet on their prayers? The same person, same visitor, Operation Power family member also said keeping the Black family together is an issue. And then the same person, Wendell, also mentioned poverty, employment, and police occupation of Black communities as something that possibly faith-based leaders should be focusing on and encouraging their congregations to focus on. I also see that Ms. Joyce, a member of the Operation Power leadership team, mentioned Reverend Jeremiah Wright. That could have possibly been in reference to the question, in addition to Charles and Inez Barron, who are some other leaders and activists who are not sleeping through the revolution. I also wanted to add to that question, one person who definitely comes to mind is Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. And then also all of the members of the National Black Radical Political Congress. Operation Power is a member of that Congress. I definitely believe that all of the members and leaders of the National Black Radical Political Congress are not sleeping through the revolution. There's an annual, if not biannual, convention where Black radical ideas and Black radical platforms are consistently discussed. And also, one thing that is discussed every time there's a convention is running Black radical candidates for office at varying levels. And so those are some other leaders who I believe personally are not sleeping through the revolution. Feel free to keep your comments coming. We love interacting with you and hearing your thoughts. We are going to jump into the next segment, which is singer, actor, activist Harry Belafonte. In this video clip, he is, I believe, on a panel. I'm not sure for what event, but you hear him discussing the legacy of the radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and you also hear him discussing some of the shortcomings and the pitfalls of the Democratic Party. So we're going to take a look at this clip featuring Harry Belafonte, and then we will watch Mr. and Mrs. Barron's response video and discuss our final reflection/discussion question.
But so that's why we were so excited to be able to expose this side of Dr. King. But so that's why we were so excited to be able to expose this side of Dr. King, a side that a lot of people haven't seen or never heard before. Or if you heard it, you just were so caught up in I have a dream and not realizing it turned to a nightmare. Matter of fact, Harry Belafonte said King was quite depressed toward the end. And Harry Belafonte is quoted as saying, we're going to play a little clip from that now. Harry Belafonte said some of King's last words to him, and he's going to express that with us and had this to say about the Democratic Party. Cable?
This poverty that our country is witnessing has never gone away. Most of the politicians I know of have visited these places of poverty. They make it their business when they're running for the highest office in this nation to go into the heart of our pain, our anguish, our indignities, and make promises only to walk into the places of power and then deny us. I guess part of the reason I'm here is to really look through the ravages of the Democratic Party and see if anything is really worth salvaging. Because when Dr. King said, we're integrated into a burning house, we said to him, what do we do about it? He said, we're just going to have to go out and become firemen. Well, maybe that's what my humble task is, to find the truck, get the hose, and know where to turn it on. This country reveals its moral decay every day of its existence. Our prisons, the largest prison system in the world, are filled with those who are the victims of poverty. The women who are disenfranchised, young teenage mothers, are victims of poverty. Poverty is knocking at our door all day long. It sits in the mirror for us to look in every morning. When we look at what's going on with the schools in this country, we build more prisons than we build schools. We have more young black men and women in the prisons of America than we have in the universities. Poverty is in our face all day long. Why is everybody behaving all of a sudden like this is some great revelation?
He is here? Yeah. Are they both here right now? Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, there's a lot of people out here who are really pissed off. We are angry, we're upset, we're sad, we hold our children, we wheel our wheelchairs, we look around for some comfort, and we don't find any. Well, we have to look to ourselves. because I think the last frontier of truth and hope in this country are the people themselves.
Thank you, Carol. One of my favorite parts about that clip is the woman who's covering her mouth after Harry Belafonte questions if the Democratic Party is even salvageable. All I have to say, well, not all I have to say is I think current actors and musicians can learn a thing or two from Harry Belafonte and his legacy and his passion. With that being said, we are about to watch Mr. and Mrs. Barron's response to that Harry Belafonte video. And Gabriel has preemptively shared the discussion question, so hopefully you had time to think about it as you watch the clip of Harry Belafonte, but now you can continue to think about it and respond if you'd like in the comment section. Do you think the Democratic Party is representing the needs and interests of Black and Brown people? If so, how? If not, how can they better represent the needs and interests? A little bit of background, I'm an educator, former teacher, current administrator, and so I believe I know the answer. I believe I know how most of the members, if not all of the members of the Operation Power leadership team would answer this question, but we purposefully left it open-ended. We didn't want to ask it in a way where we assume that you don't think that the Democratic Party is representing the needs and interests of Black and Brown people, even though I think most of the people on the leadership team will probably say no and give specific examples. We left it open though, because we want to have a dialogue and a discussion. If you are one of the people who believes the Democratic Party is representing the needs and interests of Black and Brown people, share how, give specific examples. And on the other side, contrarily, if you think they're not, share how you think they could better represent those needs and interests. We want to have an open dialogue and exchange and not assume that everyone thinks the way that we do. And then once people are able to share their thoughts, then we can try to understand where other people are coming from and maybe also have other people understand where we're coming from. So we'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. And so with that, we're going to watch the response video and feel free to comment in response to the reflection question.
Harry Belafonte, speaking direct, no equivocating, no up or down or trying to, dance around the issue, try to dance around the issue. And we would say that that's a great model for many of our entertainers now to follow, to look, to be bold, to be outspoken, to be clear, to not equivocate and try to dance down the middle, but to talk about the issues and to bring their stature and their prominence and their world platform to the issues and address it and call it for what it is and talk about the issues being resolved, getting the resource, raising people's consciousness and getting people to commit because they themselves are standing up and being that model. There were others along with Harry Belafonte, but Harry Belafonte was outspoken and a close personal friend of Dr. Martin Luther King. So we had to share that with you. Yes. But want to encourage our entertainers, our edutators to get out there and do that as well. Don't be afraid.
No, I don't know if you saw Hillary Clinton sitting next to him squirming in her seat. She was right on the stage. What are we saying here?
King always warned us of manufactured back leaders by white people.
Yes. Dr. King said that most Black leaders are given resources and high positions by the white power structure to keep them under their control and to keep the control of the Black community. And he said the masses of Black people are angry at these Black leaders. And he called them because they are manufactured leaders of the white power structure. Do you know any today? You might know a few.
Many.
Quite a few. So you see, the 60s was a period of revolution. It was all in the air. And this is why the COINTEL, the counterintelligence program of the FBI came out to stop that revolution. Oh, they didn't stop it, but they sure made a major setback by taking out the Panthers and Martin and Malcolm. Remember, Malcolm was killed in 65 and King leaves us in 68. Both of them were 39. They were only 39 years young and taken out. So we got to realize that.
Oh, wait, let me read this. Let me make sure everybody sees this and hears this. Hakeem Jeffries is definitely a manufactured Black leader. But those people in those high positions, that's why they get to those positions. They're vetted to make sure that they're not going to bump the system. They're not going to challenge the system. They are, in fact, going to continue the system. That's why they're selected for those positions that carry those titles that people look to, and they get a platform that advances what the establishment is going for, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. They are selected to be in those positions because they have proven themselves along the way to not bump the system. They're, in fact, the administrators of the system. That's why they were selected and put into those positions.
Thank you, Cairo. I see a comment from Operation Power member, Ms. Evelyn. She said voting power or people needs to vote. So thank you, Ms. Evelyn, for tuning in, and thank you for your commentary. We are going to take a pause from the video clips for a second and go watch another cultural piece. The title of this piece is Glory. It is by Common and John Legend from the 2014 movie Selma, which was about the 1965 march from Selma to Montgomery. Thank you, Cairo.
When the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh, glory, glory.
Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon formed against, yes, glory is destined. Everyday women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots we on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh, glory, glory. Now the war is not over. Victory isn't won, but we'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, we'll cry glory. Oh, glory.
Selma is now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, heroes, to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was the people. Enemy is lethal, a king became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald ego. No one can win a war individually. It take the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, glory, glory.
Thank you, Cairo. Before we jump into the next and final video clip featuring the Radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Just wanted to share some other comments shared by, I'm going to call you Wendell. I hope that's the correct way to pronounce your name. In response to the question, do you think the Democratic Party is representing the needs and interests of Black and Brown people? If so, how? If not, how can they better represent the needs and interests? Wendell said, no, there is a need for a Black agenda and cover the needs for our communities that whether we get it or not, they must press forth for discussion of our issues. We won't continue to vote them in. Wendell went on to say, no more fake, pretentious folks who carry the white man's water and power to the people. Thank you, Wendell, for your comments and for your thoughts. We appreciate them and we appreciate you. We are going to move on to the final clip of our program. We've titled this clip Black is Beautiful. In the clip, you're going to hear the Radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. use that phrase and explain what it means to him. And then following that, we will view Mr. and Mrs. Barron's commentary, and then we will have our final cultural piece, and we will close out the program. So we hope you enjoy this Black is Beautiful video.
Tonight and plead with you. Believe in yourself and believe that you're somebody. As I said to the group last night, nobody else can do this for us. No document can do this for us. No Lincolnian Emancipation Proclamation can do this for us. No Kennedonian or Johnsonian Civil Rights Bill can do this for us. If the Negro is to be free, he must move down into the inner resources of his own soul and sign with a pen and ink of self-assertive manhood his own Emancipation Proclamation. Don't let anybody take your manhood. Be proud of our heritage. As somebody said earlier tonight, we don't have anything to be ashamed of. Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in language. They made everything black, ugly, and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms of the word black. It's always something degrading and low and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure, high, and clean. But I want to get the language right tonight. I want to get the language so right that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black, I'm proud of it, I'm black and beautiful.
Thank you, Cairo. We would love to hear your responses to the video, even though there's no specific reflection or discussion question. And while you share any thoughts you have about the video, we're going to watch Mr. and Mrs. Barron's response to that Black is Beautiful video.
Thank
Wow.
you, Cairo.
Thank you, Cairo. And what a way to close out our program. But you see, this brother was as sincere as they come. You don't have to agree with everything, and you don't agree with everything anybody says, but he was right on time. And we want to bless the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King. I wish some of these preachers of today were like Dr. Martin Luther King. But unfortunately, we have prosperity preachers ripping us off for money. Or we have so-called civil rights preachers that are opportunistic and playing along with the system, happy to sit next to presidents and be invited to the White House for some chicken. So we don't have the kind of Dr. Kings that we need now. We need now, most definitely. So go ahead.
Comment from Norma Radio. Dr. King met with Algeria's Ahmed Ben Bella in 1962. Algeria was the international
That's right.
headquarters of the
That's
Black
right. Thank you.
Party.
I'm sorry. Thank you for that. He certainly did. You all remember at the Algerian Revolution? I was in the Black Panther Party in the 60s, and one of the films that we had, a classic, was The Battle of Algiers. And Dr. King met with Mandela, Algerian revolutionary president. Come on now. Dr. King, Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. King. This was a revolutionary brother. They don't want you to know that. But we presented it here today, and we honoring Dr. King on his birthday. Inez?
Yeah, and Dr. King said that most people are thermometers. They register what the temperature is, but he encouraged people to become thermostats and transform and register, not register, but change the temperature, set the temperature, and call the country to be able to protest when the things are going wrong against those evils that he talked about. So don't just say what's happening, get engaged and make changes to improve it and fight the injustice that you see.
Thank you, Carol. We're about to close out the program. Before we do, I did just want to say a few thank yous. Firstly, thank you to Carol, who is the Executive Director of Operation Power, who was supporting with tech today. Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you to the Operation Power leadership team who supported with today's program. And thank you to all of you who joined us today, and all of you who will rewatch this recording. We really appreciate you taking time to watch this and engage with us. I believe in the comment section, there will be a link to sign up for Operation Power if you'd like to become a member and learn more about us and attend future events. So please click that, and please fill out the Google form survey or whatever kind of survey it is in order to become a member and to learn more about our organization. Carol, may you please bring up Ms. Joyce's comment one more time? I was saving it because that's actually a great segue. So Ms. Joyce, who is one of the membership co-chairs of Operation Power, said, "Yes, I am Black and proud," echoing the radical Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s sentiments in the last video we watched about Black is Beautiful. And with that being said, we are going to throw it to our last cultural piece, which is I'm Black and I'm Proud by James Brown. Thank you all so much. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and it was great spending time with you. Stay Black, stay proud, and congratulations to the whole Operations Power team on another great, successful Liberation Saturday program. Have a great day, everyone.
Your bad self. Say it loud. Say it loud. Look here. Some people say we got a lot of malice. Some say it's a lot of nerve. But I say we won't quit moving until we get what we deserve. We've been buked and we've been scorned. We've been treated bad, talked about, as sure as you born. But just as sure as it takes 2 eyes to make a pair, brother, we can't quit until we get our share. Say it loud. Say it loud. One more time. Say it loud. I've worked on jobs with my feet in my hand. You know, all the work I did was for the other man. But now we demand a chance to do things for ourselves. We're tired of beating our head against the wall.